Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel. The following is actually an assignment that I had to do for a class where we were given a list of possible topics and up to 5 minutes to cover them. So this is the result. Please always remember to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you thought. Is this something you'd heard about before? Let's get started. Born in 1722 in Milton on the island of South Uist, which is part of the Hebrides Islands in Scotland, Flora MacDonald is an important woman in Scottish history. She is less important in American history, but it's still important to understand where these groups came from and what influences affected their decision regarding who to support in the American Revolution. Flora's clan, MacDonald, made up a large number of the supporters of Bonnie Prince Charlie earlier in the 1700s. He was, of course, the Catholic Stuart. His grandfather, King James II, had lost his throne in what is called the Glorious Revolution. After the defeat at Culloden, there was a £30,000 bounty on the prince's head, and he got the help of Flora MacDonald to escape. He was dressed up like an Irish maid who they called Betty Burke, and they came up with a story that Flora MacDonald was visiting her ailing mother, and that this Irish maid was going along to help care for her. The prince was able to escape, but word got out of Flora's involvement and she was arrested. She spent some time in the Tower of London before being transferred to a house still within London, where she was given considerable freedom and eventually permitted to return home. She married Allan MacDonald in 1750, but he was never particularly successful financially. By 1773, financial woes and raising rents meant that the prospect of America looked pretty appealing to them. Also around 1773, a visitor to Flora's home described her as being, quote, a little woman of genteel appearance and uncommonly mild and well-bred, end quote. A more complete version of that visit can be found in the article Flora MacDonald in History. Flora, her husband Allan, and various family members sailed for America in fall of 1774. They were briefly happy there. J.P. McLean writes that she was as well known in North Carolina as she had been in Scotland, and she received a warm welcome. She even got a ball in her honor held at Wilmington, North Carolina. J.P. McLean also writes that, quote, Flora and Allan, her husband, were the most commanding figures among all the Highlanders in North Carolina. Their influence was everywhere felt and acknowledged, end quote. Then regarding the Highlanders in general, McLean writes, they were numerically strong, increasing in numbers, and their military qualities second to none, end quote. Jean Creznic writes that it would appear at first as if the North Carolinian Scots would support the Americans against Britain, but the, quote, threats, propaganda, and coercion from Governor Martin and his agents prevailed, end quote. On February 27th of 1776, the Highland Immigrant Volunteers were defeated at Morris Creek Bridge, and Flora's husband and her son were taken prisoner. They were eventually transported to Pennsylvania, where in November of 1776, Allan MacDonald actually complained to Congress that prisoner exchanges were being arranged for everyone except him and his son. And while his life may not have been fun just then, it wasn't fun for Flora back in North Carolina either. It appears that the family's lands were probably confiscated, and Flora may have had to watch their home be burnt before her very eyes. She spent some time in New York and Nova Scotia while she awaited the freedom of her husband and son. Her health also suffered during this time. She and other family members would return to Scotland in 1779, but Allan wouldn't be able to join them until after his regiment had disbanded in 1783. It may be that he also tried to make a life for them in Nova Scotia, but he had to give it up due to lack of funds. She died March 4th of 1790 on the Isle of Skye in Scotland. There's some stories about her that may just be myths. Maybe she was married in a black silk dress. Maybe it was a Stuart tartan. Maybe she saved the sheets that Bonnie Prince Charlie had slept on and asked that they be used as her funeral shroud. Maybe it was just an acquaintance of hers that did so. In 1870, an autobiography of her life was published, which had been edited by her granddaughter. And in it, Flora wrote, Quote, although America suited me and the young people, yet my husband thought it advisable at the conclusion of the war to quit a country that had involved us in anxiety and trouble almost from the first month of our landing on its shores. End quote. Whether we read the writings of Mercy Otis Warren, one of the first histories of the American Revolution, or something more recent like Robert Middlecoff's The Glorious Cause, we should remember that this time wasn't glorious for everyone. Loyalty was not always an easy decision, and there were real hardships for people who made the wrong choice. Thank you.